Okay, thank you. All right, I'd like to call to order the meeting, Planning Commission meeting of July 12th. It is currently 6:34. And if we could begin the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Jingbo. Okay, Jackie, if you could call the roll.
Yes, Chairman. Good evening, everyone. Roll call starts now. Chairman Klobuchar,
I'm here.
Vice Chair Liu,
I'm here.
Commissioner Juarez,
Here.
Commissioner Mamdapurkar,
Anagas is excused.
thank you, and Commissioner Schwartz.
Here.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
should we or staff, should we request the people to mute their mics so we don't get a lot of extraneous background noise?
Yeah, that's good suggestion. If you're not on the commission or staff, if you could please mute, we'd appreciate that.
And until it's time to talk.
Correct. Then we'd love to hear from you. Okay. Okay, tonight's meeting is live streamed on cable channel 3 and our online platforms. If you have comments that you would like to share, please email them to pc-publiccomment, no spaces, @sgch.org. No later than the beginning of the discussion period. Comments received after the items have been considered will not be read into the record. Okay, comments will be read by Assistant Jackie Wong, and we're going to put a limit on those of 3 minutes each tonight. The agenda items will also be introduced by Jackie. To prevent any overlaps in comments, each commissioner will be called upon to speak, and that's just because we're working virtually, so bear with us. Okay, Jackie, the public comment?
Thank you. The public comment portion is the time to set aside for members of the public to address the Planning Commission on items of interest that are not on the agenda, but are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the Planning Commission. Pursuant to the Brown Act, the Planning Commission cannot answer any questions or take any action until such time as the matter may appear as an item on a future agenda.
Okay, Jackie, do we have any comments that have been submitted?
Not for this portion.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Okay, item number 2, we're going to take a look at the consent calendar, which included the minutes from the May 10th Planning Commission meeting. Did anybody have any comments or changes? Have they been reviewed? If so, do we have a motion to approve?
I make motion to approve the May 10th meeting minutes.
Okay, second.
I'll second it.
Okay, Jackie?
Okay, Commissioner Juarez,
Yes.
Commissioner Schwartz,
Yes.
Vice Chair Liu,
Yes.
and Chairman Klobuchar.
Yes.
Okay, the vote is 4-0, motion carried.
All right. Okay, it's time for our public hearing items, and our planning manager, Samantha, will give us the directions for the public hearing.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Good evening. Thank you for participating and tuning into tonight's Planning Commission meeting. My name is Samantha Tiwasar, Planning Manager with the Community Development Department. There are 2 public hearing items tonight. Copies of the agenda and the staff report for tonight's public hearing are available on the city's website at www.sangabrielcity.com. If you wish to comment on any of these items and are not the applicant, please email the public comments to pc-publiccomment@sgch.org no later than the time the item is considered by the Planning Commission tonight. Comments received after items have been considered will not be read into the record. For each item tonight, staff will provide a summary of the staff report, followed by comments from the applicant. Then the public hearing will be open and the recording secretary will begin reading aloud the public comments that have been received during the hearing. Each comment will be read for up to 3 minutes. After the public comments are read, the applicant is provided the opportunity to rebut if they choose. Prior to the close of the public hearing, the commission may ask questions of the applicant or staff. However, once the public hearing is closed, the opportunity for public comment has ended. Chairman, at this time, staff is ready to present item 3A.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Sam. Okay, we're going to start off with item 3A, which is 225 West Valley Boulevard, 150 Hovey Avenue, 152 Hovey Avenue, 1533 Manley Drive, and 1535 Manley Drive. This is planning case number GPA 20-001, ZC 20-001, and TMAP 20-017. The applicant is Landwin Hospitality, LLC, and they are representing various property owners. Okay, who's going to take the lead on this from staff? Sam, or is that Matt?
I'll be Matt. So,
okay, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair and members of the Commission. The item before you tonight is Hilton Hotel parking lot expansion project that will involve with general plan amendment application, zone change application, as well as the tentative map applications. Can you go to slide number 2, please? Subject project including 5 parcels, which is 225 West Valley, which is Hilton Hotel parcels, 150 and 152 Hovey Avenue. Currently, they're single family houses, as well as 1533 and 1535 Manley Drive. They are currently single family houses as well. So staff provide aerial maps as well as a kind of proposed project map in the staff report for us to easy kind of to clarify some of the locations and where the boundaries are. Second, next slide, please. As staff mentioned before, the project will require general plan amendment for 2 parcels, zone change for 4 parcels, and tentative parcel map, which is to reconfigure the parcel boundary for 5 parcels. And the overall project is for a parking lot expansion for the existing Hilton Hotel. And staff provide kind of more a table as well as a map in the staff report to clarify which parcel needs zone change, which parcel needs general plan amendment. Hopefully that provide easy reference to identify the project. Next slide, please. This is a proposed project area. The one in the yellow, that will be the additional, I guess, the expansion of the parking lot. And those area will involve with general plan as well as zone change applications. And for the 2 parcels on 150 and 152, they will remain as a single family house, but a portion of their backyard will be proposed to be combining with the Hilton parcels. as well as for 1533 as well 1535 Many Drive. Those parcel will be merged with the Hilton parcels, and those buildings will be removed as part of the projects. So the proposed project area will be within the kind of yellow highlighted on the screen here. Next slide, please. This is a proposed site plan provided by the applicant, and the north is on the left. So you can see a Hovey Avenue to the left. So the north arrow is going to the left, and the project will be including additional parking spaces as well as driveway as well as landscaping area. And you can go to next slide, please. Staff has reviewed this project in accordance with the general plan, the zoning. It is staff's belief that by providing a consistent general plan destination as well as the zoning destinations, the proposed project can have a consistent use as well as in compliance with the general plan of zoning destinations. And the off-street parking, the project will provide additional parking spaces, which you will accommodate any overflow traffic, overflow parking during special event. And as part of this project, the applicants requesting to have landscaping as well as light standard associated with the parking lot project. And the landscaping will have a 10-foot wide landscaping strip abutting to the side and rear of the single-family property homes. And this part of this project will be encroaching within the Alhambra wash easement. And the applicant has reached out to the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, and the U.S. Army Corps has verified that the project itself does not require a separate permit from the federal agency. So the project will be handled in the city level with Planning Commission, City Council. If the City Council approves the project, and staff on planning as well as Public Works Department will review detailed grading plans, electrical plans, as well as landscaping plans. Next slide. This project is exempt from the CEQA requirement as a Class 3 and Class 11 for new construction as well as construction of accessory structures. For example, parking lot, block wall, retaining wall, parking lot lights, and landscaping installations. Next slide, please. The project public notice, we noticed the project to all property owners and tenants within a 500-foot radius of the project site. And signage is also posted at the project site. The meeting agenda as well as the notice for this hearing was posted in the St. Gabriel Sun newspaper on July 1st. Next slide, please. In conclusion, staff is recommending the Planning Commission to adopt a resolution to approve the general plan amendment, approve the zone change, and approve the tentative parcel map. And this concludes staff's presentation, and staff is ready for any questions.
Great, thank you, Matt. Commissioners, do we have any questions on that report? Go ahead, Jingbo.
I have a question. So I think it's the purpose of this general plan amendment and the zone change is to provide additional parking. That was I see that's a purpose of this this applications. But what I want to know, what is a difference, if there's any difference between a variance and a zone change or a general plan amendment for this kind of a simple use change?
Yes, so thank you, Vice Chair. So variance usually the applicant will be asking a waiver of more like a development standards. For example, if the building height is 25 feet, if the applicant is asking for 30 feet, that will be a variance. Usually you kind of associate with development standards, something just like a black and white, whether it be a setback, building height, lot coverage. In this case, it's more the use. Since the parking lot use, what the applicant would like to do for the proposed parking lot use, the additional space, the area there within the R1 zone, or one of them is the MUT zone, which currently standalone parking is not allowed in those zones. So in order to allow that use, the applicant needs to apply for a zone change to have a general plan amendment. So it could be a commercial zoning as well as kind of combined with the Hilton parcel to allow that particular use. So in this case, it's more the use. They need to change the zoning to allow that particular use.
Okay. And will this use zoning change will grant the property owner for the future development of building a structure since it's been changed? So will that be permitted by this change?
If the applicant will propose any structure in the future, we still have, for example, if the zone change is allowed, and but there will be still a development standards, for example, a setback requirements. So if the developer in the future would like to have a structures or even accessory structure close to that area, they still need to comply with the applicable development standards, whether it be 5 feet, 10 feet, or 15 feet. So staff will evaluate the project at that time to see the project comply with the standards. And for this particular case, since it's a parking lot, is more a ground plane improvement. So there's no kind of setback requirement at this point, since it's a plain kind of ground plane improvement with parking, driveway, as well as landscaping.
And what is the status of the general plan update, or do we have any timeline on it?
Right now, we're doing a general plan update for the housing element, but for the general plan update for other element of the general plan, we still need to kind of identify the funding source as well as a kind of a timeline. So, our first priority will be the housing element at this point.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Thanks, Jingbo. Anybody else before we bring in the applicant? Okay, is the applicant here? Would they?
Yes,
like?
This is Stephen Chen. I'm representing the Hilton Hotel. We are the design architect of the project. And I'm here for any questions or any concern that chair or commissioner has, and then ready for that.
Okay. Yeah, the only question I would have is, were you able to review the recommended conditions? And did you have any questions or any problems with any of those?
No, as if I know of, we don't have any question about the condition, and we are aware of these changes that we are mainly, just like Matt was mentioned, the owner need these R1 single family zone to be parking is to relieve the parking conjunction during the holidays or big events. We do have quite a lot of complaint in the past from the hotel guests and also the neighbor about the parking issue or the traffic issue around these side street on the Manly and the Holy. So the Hilton Hotel finally have to acquire some lots and prepare for expanding their current parking space to have more staging area for guest parking. Mainly those parking are for bigger events when that happens, for valet parkings or like those big event vendor truck or those temporary parking space. So most of the time, it won't be too many parking there. So that's what the main idea behind these, and try to make everybody's life easy during the bigger event.
Okay, very good. Commissioners, anybody have questions for the applicant? If not, Jackie, do we have any public comment?
Yes, Chairman, we received one,
Okay,
and it is from Debbie Wu. She resides at 1527 Manley Drive in San Gabriel, and she writes, I am the owner at 1527 Manley Drive. I am strongly opposed to having a parking lot next to my property. 1533 Manley Drive, from single-family residence to commercial use. 150 Hovey Avenue and 152 Hovey Avenue, from single-family residence to partially commercial use. The Hilton Hotel across my property has created a lot of noises. With a new hotel and condo going to finish soon, more noises are coming. Having a parking lot right next to me, I am going to hear cars coming in and going out, cars ignition on and off all the time. People are going to talk while picking up their cars. The attendant is going to speak loudly. Horns, sound, and the light pole, everything is going to affect me. The Hilton Hotel has a machine or compressor, I do not know what it is, which is running all the time. I can hear it from my bedroom. The sound really bothers me, which makes me have a hard time sleeping. If I am going to have a parking lot next to me, I think I will go nuts. All the value of my property is going to decrease due to having a parking lot neighbor instead of a real person neighbor. The applicant proposed to have a 6-foot high wall, which is not high enough, a 10-foot wide, which is not wide enough. I really wish the city of San Gabriel could be more considerate of for the residents on Manley Drive. Many of my neighbors are elderly people and most do not speak English. They want their children to help to oppose this project, but children are saying they do not have time. Several residents live on Manley Drive for many, many years, like me, for 30 years. We love it here, but it looks like the businessman is taking more and more from us. We just want to have a quieter environment and save more residential property on our street. Thank you so much for your time. That concludes the public comment for this item.
okay, thanks, Jackie. Okay, she actually brought up some pretty good points. I'm not sure if we can, Matt, you might want to take this, or the applicant. Do we have any buffering? How are we treating the neighbors here?
Yes, this is Senior Planner Matt Chen. I'll start kind of responding. So for this particular project, staff is requiring a 6-foot high block wall to be a separation or a property line wall between the proposed parcels and the single family properties. In addition to that, we also require a 10-foot wide planter area. The reason for the 10-foot is the code requires to be 10 feet. And also 10 feet provide a sufficient area for bigger trees. So in this case, the applicant is proposing to have, I think, 19 trees along the buffer area, like 19 trees with 24-inch box of a Brisbane box. And the other thing staff requiring the applicant to do is to have a parking lot light that's reduced to a height of 14 feet tall. Typical parking lot height is like 20, but for this particular project, it will be 14 feet. So there are some of the kind of mitigation measures to kind of address potential light pollution or the noise, as well as kind of privacy. For the applicant's team, it is staff's understanding that the project architect is on the call today, as well as the hotel manager for the Hilton Hotel, as well as several experts on the developer side, which landscape architect, civil engineer, they're also on the call. So maybe they can chime in on the landscaping measures.
Hi, this is Stephen Chen from Tech Design. We're the design architect representative here as well. To add on to Matt's comment about the addressing the noise and also the light issue, on top of that 19 trees along the buffer, we also provide more trees on the finger planters. So actually we do have like 2 layers of the landscaping to to ease the sound issue. And also we have, like I say, like Matt said, we have the 6 feet high block wall. I believe that's the highest we can get from the planning requirement. I'm not sure if we can make it even higher to reduce the sound transmitted, but I'm not sure if the higher will help them because that will block out more sunlight opportunity too. So that's kind of something we might have to play the balance with it. And the other thing is along the backyard of all the R1 family zone neighbors, those car or parking space, like we always plan to have those staging or the backup parking only, and mostly these will be valet parking area. So most of the noise will be back to the main entrance or the canopy area where the guests, the hotel guests or even guests will park their car in front of the door, and the valet parking staff will park the car for them. So hopefully that will reduce a lot of noise or higher volume of talk or anything. I think before they have a lot of these events or like noise because it was such a mess back then, and that's why they have to yell at each other to kind of move the cars or get into different places or maneuver the cars within a very tight space. Once we have this open space or open parking area, I think we will reduce the chance to have those congestion on the parking, also reduce the staff try to coordinating the parking event, that kind of thing. So hopefully that will reduce that. So that will be my input for that comments. Hello?
Chair, I think you're muted.
I am, I'm sorry. I had dog issues. The trees, are they predominantly on the perimeter?
Yeah.
Okay. Very good. Okay, commissioners, okay. If we don't have any more comments, I'm going to go ahead and close the public comment portion.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
I'd like to say something.
excellent.
Okay. I'm glad we had that one comment. It shows you how even a lone voice can have an effect, at least they listed on me. I live in a situation similar to this. And as I've expressed before, these R1 abutting commercial or high density residential are my, I don't want to call them pet peeves, but area of emphasis. How about that? And I know what it's like to hear those sounds day in and day out, or in the middle of the night when some event is going on. And I live, well, within a few hundred yards of this area also, outside the range. So, and then I know what it's like to have traffic going through your neighborhood because of an event. So unfortunately, this area here, it's which problem do you solve? Because you can't really solve them both, right? If you don't enlarge the parking, you got lots of cars. If you do enlarge the parking, you've got noise next to what was at one time a little quieter residential area. And 10 feet may sound like a lot of distance, but it's not. It's not when it comes to noise. A lot of it depends on atmospheric conditions, the wind, so on and so forth. There's only so much you can do. So pending any other comments, because I looked at the drawings and the pictures, the bushes, the walls, the big, I mean, that's a fairly sizable buffer as far as code goes. But I'm addressing the issue of what's its actual effect. And I suspect the effect will be minimal. Okay. So pending any other comments, I would move to approve this project, but not with the proposed trees and bushes. And there are some situations where trees can have almost zero effect. They grow up and bush out, and all the sound and the noise and the trash when they blow it with leaf blowers, comes underneath the branches, over the wall, in my case, through the wall, because they have the wall is not solid, it's not a block wall, and so forth. So were they to put I believe that the plant is called a juniper, but I'm not gonna play botanist here, but there are tall green plants that placed one next to another can provide a 10, 15, even 20 or 30-foot barrier that would screen sound, would screen noise, sound and noise, same thing, trash. And in this case, because the building is so tall, light should not be an issue from these bushes. So I'm gonna make that motion that to approve this, but with a more significant landscape barrier than what is proposed, so that it is taller and completely dense, allowing no debris and minimal sound. I mean, it's not going to be soundproof through it. That's all I got.
Okay, very good. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and close the comment portion, and let's open this up for commissioner discussion. Jingbo, you want to
Yes.
follow up on Mark here?
Yes, I think Mark's comments probably should be part of the commission discussions, and since it was more of a commissioner's concerns. Yeah, I agree with Mark. It's always my concerns when a commercial zone but against a R1 zone. I can think of I remember for the very similar project just across street from the same developer owner. Years ago, when I first got onto the commissions, and there was a development had similar issues, and it's adjacencies to a residential R1 residential neighborhood. And from that hearing, I realized our general plan, our zoning code does not address some fundamental issues like the heights and the use of the L1 buildings adjacent to a R zone. So at that time, I thought my hand was bind. I cannot really say anything. I did make the comments. That was years ago. It was a too much impact to the adjacent residential buildings. Now the building is on its way up. It's almost complete. I can see the impact. It's drastic, and so I made that comments at the beginning to the city staff. Is yes, we're approving this zone change, and what mechanism we have to prevent these things happen with current zoning code, since it's related to a zoning change. We are driving a wedge into a R1 neighborhood, giving that the two buildings to the east, which is a very it's 1533 and 1535. We are already showing a sign of this distress because the surrounding commercial development. So it is a question I'm always asking myself, and how is this kind of development will permanently affect the R1 zone adjacent to it? We all know, not in our city, but in other cities, when we do this kind of development, there's always the envelope requirements when you really building a building adjacent to a R1 zone or residential zones. There's a very serious restrictions, and I don't see that happen to our planning code from my previous experiences. So, I assume that the Alhambra Wash easement might provide some kind of restrictions for the future development. I'm more looking to the futures. I know if the zoning changed, then before the next round of the general zone, general plan updates, and we are still going to operate under the current zonings, and it's not going to address adjacency issues. That's always my concerns. And but assume I hope that easement probably will provide some kind of restrictions for a permanent structure to be erect on that site. So my biggest concern is if the zoning change, general plan amendment granted, and are we hand out the developers a right to just for example, you can build a 4 stories additional assessment accessory units to buildings to expand the hotels, and giving that right next to a R1 zone, and we're changing the R1 zone to a commercial, then it's going to, if that's going to happen, it will permanently affect the immediate adjacent neighbors. That's my concerns. I agree with Mark. If those concerns addressed, I could support it with additional requirements for mitigate the light pollutions and the noise impact, even the operating hours requirements. That's something we, in a hotel operates 24/7, and you can come park anytime you want. So that's a concern to me. So I think if these kind of concerns can be addressed, I can support it.
Okay, thanks, Jingbo. Jerry?
Well, I think Mark's comments about landscape buffer are valid. I would support those. But I go to this hotel pretty regularly as a member of the local Kiwanis Club, and parking is a huge problem. You have a couple of events going on, and parking is a disaster. So the extra parking for the hotel is a real necessity. So from a parking standpoint, I think it's really something they need. But I agree with Mark. The landscape buffer should be taller and more dense. And given that, I can support it.
Okay, thank you. Mark, did you have anything to add, or are you good with what you've? You're muted.
It sounds like we're all of some similar mind here, and if just as an example, I'm not suggesting it be the actual specification, but I have a picture if you want me to share it of the plan I'm talking about, but I don't know if that would be necessary. I think we all kind of, as long as it's dense, as long as it achieves the goal, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, I've seen cypress that are planted close together that almost become a green wall.
Yes,
exactly. Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about. If we could make that maybe one of the conditions of approval, what would be our mechanism for doing that?
Well, I propose moving for approval with that modification. And if the remainder of the commission supports it, that should do it. Should it not, council or staff?
Yeah.
Yes, Chairman and members of the commission, this is Samantha Tuwasart, Planning Manager. For clarification, the recommendation before the Planning Commission this evening is to recommend approval to the City Council. So with that recommendation, with the motion to recommend the approval, the commission can also recommend adding an additional condition to the conditions of approval.
Okay, and we can do that with our moving this on to the city council.
Correct.
Okay, very good. Okay, if we don't have any more comments, I'm going to go ahead and move that let's see, where is our, hold on. Bear with me here. Okay, this is a resolution to the recommending that the city council approve planning case number GPA 20-001, which is a general plan amendment, ZC 20-001, which is a zone change, and TMAP 20-017, which is a tentative parcel map for the parking lot expansion at the Hilton Los Angeles San Gabriel Hotel, with an additional item of condition of approval, and that is to revisit the landscape buffering between the existing residential properties and the now rezoned commercial property, and with the intent of increasing the density and increasing the sound and the visual buffer between the properties. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Jackie?
Okay, Commissioner Juarez,
Yes.
Commissioner Schwartz,
Yes.
Vice Chair Liu,
I think I'm not gonna vote as a stand.
is that an abstention?
Yeah.
Okay, and Chairman Cloeter?
Yes.
Okay, the vote is 3 yes, 0 no's, and 1 abstention, Vice Chair Liu. Motion carried, 3 yes, 1 abstention, 1 no, 0 no.
Okay, very good.
Carried.
Thank you very much. And good luck to our applicant as they move forward with this.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, let's move on to item B. This is for 700 and 800 South San Gabriel Boulevard, planning case number ZC 18-001, which is a zone change, and TMAP 18-005, which is another tentative track map. The applicant is Pacific Square San Gabriel LLC, and Matt Chang is going to be doing our staff presentation. You have the floor, Matt.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Chair and members of the Commission. The second item before you tonight is a zone change or a planned development overlay zone application and a tentative track map for a proposed mixed-use project, also known as Pacific Square, located at 700 to 800 South San Gabriel Boulevard. And we can go to the next slide, please. The subject site is surrounded by San Gabriel Boulevard to the left. Oh, can you go to the next slide, please? Thank you. And San Gabriel Boulevard to the left, to the west, and Almonte Street to the north, South Gladys to the east, as well as East Grand Avenue to the south. The project site is about 5.5 or 5.8 acres. Is one of the very few remaining city block that's proposed to be developed in the city of San Gabriel. And you can go to the next slide, please. The project description will be the applicant is proposing to have a zone change, or also known as, for this particular case, is planned development overlay zone applications. And as part of this project, the applicant is also would like to entertain a development agreement with the city council for the project. The project itself will include 243 residential condos and 8 live-work units, and as well as 76,000 square feet of commercial space on the first floor of the project. And the project itself also includes a central park or central plaza area in between the two buildings for open space, as well as for public, as well private amenity to the residents, as well as to the residents. Next slide, please. This project will require a zone change applications, which includes the plan development and development agreement applications, as well as the tentative track map application. And the purpose of a tentative track map application is for condominium, for residential, as well as commercial condominium purposes. And the role of the Planning Commission to provide recommendations to the council, and council will be the decision maker for zone change, as well as tentative track map applications. If the project did get approved by City Council, the project is still subject to precise plan of design, as well as a master sign programs to be reviewed and approved by the Design Review Commission. Next slide, please. Staff provide a detailed kind of project history in the staff report, but for presentation purposes, staff kind of just provide a key kind of milestone for this project. And back in 2017, the applicant conducted a public outreach to gather idea from the general public regarding the type of project the community would like to see at this location. And in March of 2018, the entitlement were submitted to the city. And in 2019, the project was presented in front of the City Council and Planning Commission as the two separate meetings to do a preview with the council members as well as the planning commissioners. And last year, the project was presented in front of the Historical Preservation and Cultural Resource Commission for presentation regarding the tribute growth for the history of the St. Gabriel Nursery. And also last year that city staff released the public review draft, the draft EIR, which you know is an environmental impact report. And this year, the project went to Design Review Commission twice as a preview item so they can get a design input from the Design Review Commissioners. And also just last month, June, a final EIR was released to the general public. Next slide, please. The project this is the overall site plan, and the north is going to the left. So same thing to the last project, the north is to the left. So the project is divided into two buildings. One is 700 Plaza to the left, or more on the north side, and the other building is the 800 Plaza, which is to the south on the right-hand side. In between will be a central park or central plaza area for recreation, future special event purposes. Next slide, please. Staff has reviewed this project compared with the goals of the general plan, as well as the land use. And this project will include 8 live-work units, which in the regular C1 zone, live-work unit is not allowed. But live-work unit concept is permitted in the Mission District as well as Valley Boulevard specific plan, but they're not allowed in the C1 zone. But with the plan development overlay zone, they could request a live-work unit to be allowed in this particular locations. Staff also provide a kind of comparison of development standards compared to regular C1 mixed-use project as well as proposed project. And for this project, the applicant will have a multiple driveway into the site for commercial as for residential purposes, and a detailed location of those driveway access are in your staff report. Next slide, please. For the architectural design, the project is a kind of contemporary design. Typically, process is that the applicant will go through a plan development with the Planning Commission and zone change to get the zone change approved before come back to refine the architectural design with the Design Review Commissions. And as part of this project, the applicant would like to enter a development agreement with the city and a draft development agreement is attached to the staff report. And part of the project will provide several offsite improvements as required by by the code. And staff lists those offsite improvement in the staff report, kind of outline the type of improvement and also the location of those improvements. Next slide, please. With this project, environmental impact report, also the EIR is required per CEQA guidelines, and a notice of preparation was conducted back in 2018 to get an idea of what the report or environmental document should be looking for. And a draft EIR was circulated for public comment or review from December of last year till January 21st of this year. And during the public comment period, 6 comments were received by the city, and city also have a city environmental consultant, ESA, provide a lot of technical work regarding the EIR. And a final MND, actually final EIR, is my mistake on the final EIR was released in June of this year. Next slide, please. And for public noticing for this particular hearings, we send out notices to all property owners and tenants within a 500 foot of this site. I think it's a little bit more than 500. We also posted 4 signage, 1 facing each street to advertise the public hearing. And agenda of this planning commission was posted at City Hall, public library, as well as the post office. And we'll also notice the planning commission meeting in the St. Gabriel Sound on July 1st. Next slide, please. In conclusion, staff is recommending the planning commission to recommend city council to 1, to certify the EIR. Second item, to recommend adopt findings of fact and MMRP, which is a mitigation measure. And the third item is to recommend approval of zone change or plan development. And the last recommendation is to recommend approval of a TMAP, which is tentative track map. And this concludes staff's presentation. And just for commissioners' information, we also city also have city's environmental consultant, which is ESA, here to answer any technical question regarding CEQA requirement or EIR documents. This concludes staff's presentation, and staff is ready for any questions.
Okay, thanks, Matt. Commissioners, any comments or
I have
clarifying
a comment.
questions to the staff?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jimbo.
Yes, this live work units qualified for arena allocation numbers.
Yes, it is staff's understanding that the live work unit qualifies as RENA number because it is still have a residential component in it. They do kind of live on site. But however, the number is relatively small. It's only 8 units. So.
Yeah, it's just. All right. Okay, thank you.
Anybody else?
I have a question.
Go ahead, Mark.
This started going long before I became a commissioner. So is this the first iteration in terms of units and square footage, or has this evolved from maybe something smaller or bigger to this point? Just for my reference.
Thank you, Commissioner. So the initial submittal project, staff wasn't here at that time. Initial submittal project, based on staff's researches, the residential units about the same, 243 units. However, the commercial unit was much bigger. I think commercial square footage was like 100,000. So this is down to 76,000 square feet. And after staff's discussion here, the applicant also have their own PowerPoint presentation, kind of providing how they come out with the design and also the square footage. So to answer your questions, commercial square footage, it is less when it was compared to first was submitted.
Thank you.
Okay, let's bring in the applicant. We'd love to hear from you.
Yes, good evening, commissioners. I trust you can all hear me.
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. If we can have the presentation pulled up, I can go ahead and get started. So good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. My name is Ken Lee. I'm the Vice President of Development at Pacific Plaza Premier Development Group, and I'm representing the owners of Pacific Square San Gabriel tonight. We're very, very excited to be before you tonight as this hearing represents such an important milestone in a 5-year-long journey for this project that's before you. You know, I want to thank staff, especially for working with us to get us to this point. As Matt said, we've actually gone through several staff, in fact, over the course of 5 years. And we really appreciate Planning Manager Samantha Tuasart for stepping in and working with us and on a steep learning curve to get this project ready for hearing. A couple of our team members will be co-presenting with me tonight. And in the next slide, I'd like to introduce the entire project team to you. So next slide, please. From our design team, we have Rick Abe from Media Portfolio, who you'll hear from toward the tail end of our presentation. We also have Tim Fan from Simon Lee and Associates, who is on the phone line for question and answer. Simon Lee, founder of Simon Lee and Associates, was also very instrumental in this project. We also have Brittany Knott, our lead civil engineer from Fusco Engineering, who is also on the line for a later Q&A. They prepared, obviously, the tentative track map. Brian Norcott is our commercial listing broker from Newmark and joined our team at the outset of our project inception, which is very atypical for a project like ours, but was very important because we put such a heavy early emphasis on understanding the retail market before we put pencil to paper on design. Brian's not on the line, but he is listening in. Also co-presenting with me and Rick is John Wary. He is our community engagement team leader from Stratoscope. Best and Krieger is our legal team, including Elizabeth Hall, Amy Hoyt, and Ali Tarani. Amy and Ali are both on the line for Q&A in case there are questions that come up from a CEQA standpoint. They are our CEQA experts. Next slide, please. So the main focus of our presentation to you tonight is really the thoughtful and deliberative community engagement process that was implemented at the outset of our project. What you'll see is an iterative dialogue that helped us to formulate what we really believe to be a win-win-win for the community, the city, and for this project, which provides needed housing to the region, preferred retail amenities for the broader community, communal gathering space and park space that is publicly accessible, and a project on a commercial corridor that will act as a catalyst to spur additional investment in a corridor that really needs additional investment, including investment in local businesses. We really believe this project can and will be a gem for the city and the community. For our development company, this is also a gem for us. It really is our signature project in the San Gabriel Valley. This is the largest mixed-use project that we're endeavoring to complete. And we're very excited about getting approvals and starting the project. Next slide, please. And as all you all know, a very important aspect of both the project and this location is the recognition of the history of the property and the legacy of the San Gabriel Nursery and Florist to the city, the region, and the horticultural community. For this reason, we really deliberatively engaged in several conversations with the nursery family, the Yoshimura family, to better understand the history from the family's perspective and to make sure that any tribute that we make on this project to the nursery and family is done in a tasteful manner and is appropriate from their perspective. The history of the property has really informed and guided how we've engaged in the community and designed the project, as you'll hear from John in a little bit. Next slide, please. So with that, I'd like to now hand the presentation over to John from Stratoscope, who's going to talk about the road we took to get to tonight.
Thanks, Ken. Thanks, Ken. And thank all of you for your attention this evening. So how did we get to this point tonight where we're speaking in front of you about this project? It did, as Matt mentioned earlier, it did start back in 2016 when the property was purchased by Pacific Square San Gabriel. Can I get next slide, please? And at that moment is when we began working with the community to shape the project that would best serve the city and the community. And we started that through one-on-one interviews, informal interviews, as well as formal workshops, 2 of them in that first year. Really, we spent that first year focusing on how do we work with the community? How do we create a project for the community? Next slide, please. So through these workshops that we held after the interviews, we really made sure that we were interacting with the community, actually getting their direct feedback through surveys, as you see on your screen here, asking what they really wanted to see out of this project. And it wasn't just a check the box kind of experience where we just did it once and we're done. We did it twice in that first year. We did mailings to neighbors and beyond. We also did advertisements in local newspapers as well, announcing the project was coming and that those interested in giving feedback were welcome to do so as part of this process. Can I get next slide, please? And so as you saw earlier and you see again here, the blank slate is where we started. We had this property, the yellow square in front of you, but we also recognized that around that surrounding zoning, it was a really unique mix, right? You had direct dense zoning right behind us, multifamily on the east. Directly across on the west, north, and south was commercial. And then beyond that, in the northwest of there, you had single family, but you also had more multifamily. So a truly mixed zoning area. And this was a transition point for the community, ideal for a mixed use asset. But again, we started with a blank slate. Next slide, please. So that blank slate, after the first workshop, generated 3 very different sort of site plans, and we were able to select one through the workshop process. Next slide, please. And that was option 3, and now is here a larger view for you. This was the initial concept that we were able to go with and really build upon. And if what you're looking at right now, evolved into what's in your actual formal submittal packet tonight. Next slide. But I think one of the most important things we heard in this community engagement process that first year was that it was clear that the community and heritage was key to almost every comment that we received, that the retail and dining really had to reflect the growing diversity in the community, but also the need to have diversity of options in the retail, that there was community space that was both a tribute to the heritage of the site, as Ken mentioned, but also a place for people to gather and come together, and that the impacts of the project be minimized as greatly as possible. And so we took that very strongly as we went forward. Next slide, please. And as you can see here, we spent about 9 months after that second workshop before we did our first submittal to the city, as you heard earlier. So 2018 was the time that we really spent on submitting and starting the EIR process. And so if I can get the next slide. Then it was mid-2019 that we came back to this body and to the city council for a preview, really making sure that you knew what was going on. It wasn't just going to be a surprise later. And from those meetings, we heard again that the community input was really important. So not only did we do a really strong community engagement process in 2017, we relaunched an aggressive campaign, if you will, in 2019 that we intended to carry on into 2020. But that included more one-on-one interviews with some of the same folks that we had talked to back in 2017, 2 years later, but also new players and new leaders who had emerged as being valuable to the input of the future of the project. We did we call a walk and knock, where we actually went door to door with the opportunity to have one-on-one conversations in language in some cases, if English wasn't the primary language. And we held a formal workshop again to update the community and gather further input towards the end of 2019. So if I can get the next slide, please. So we also launched this project website, as you see in front of you, that was an opportunity for people to track the input that we'd received and see how the design was shaping up. And so that launched as well this same time frame, allowed people to also request further information and engage with us if they weren't able to make the meetings or weren't home when we knocked on their doors. And so that was really an important concept for us as well. Next, please. As you can see from this image of our workshop, this is one of the 3 workshops, but it was indicative of what we did here. And I obviously you see a presenter at this front, and that's always important to give context. But I want to draw your attention to the sign towards the back of the room. That was station number 3 of 5 stations that we had at our workshop, where we spoke for about 15 minutes and then really spent the remaining time, more than an hour, sometimes an hour and a half, talking one-on-one with attendees, gathering their input, having formal comment cards at various stations on various topics to really have that engagement that wasn't transactional, but was actually collaborative, what you really want when you co-develop a project with community partners and others. Next slide, please. So what came of that was the idea of these, issues like this, where it was the public amenities, where we heard from the community wanted, and we created that open space for tenants and the public. It wasn't just space for those who lived there, but from everyone in the community. This was the gathering space for the community. Next slide, please. And it came out with this initial rendering. This is what we sort of came out with initially. And you'll notice from this that it was an earlier version that did not have a driveway and signal at Pearl that's currently there. But this is where we started. And in your packet, you'll see the updated version of this. But again, this is based on community input that we've changed the model a couple times. Next slide, please. And you'll notice from the start that we started to include step backs. The idea that if it was really geared towards a pedestrian scale, that if you're on the street, if you're parked there, if you're walking by, you don't feel the tower right in front, that the residential was stepped back, and it was really designed for that pedestrian experience, engaging with the retail tenants as well. Next, please. And we also made sure that we, from the beginning, were able to incorporate the grade change. And you can see from this rendering that there is in fact a grade change, and we incorporated that into the design from the start. Next slide, please. So here we are in 2020, and everybody's best laid plans of 2020 got a little bit disrupted, as we all experienced. We had planned, the community workshop was in December. We knew people were going to take time for the holidays, get back into the swing of things. We had scheduled our next business walk and knock the first week of February, which we conducted, talked neighbor to neighbor, and then had a number of programs scheduled for in-person and other community engagement activities that were all basically paused in the way that we had planned them in the beginning of March. So we had about a month of planning that got truncated in March, but it didn't stop us. And I think that what's key here is that we continue to work with the community in new ways to continue to give them information and collect information. We offered a virtual tour of the property and actually took people around corner by corner of the property and showed them where we were with the latest renderings. That was in April of 2020. We also did later that year, we did a session as COVID sort of came to be clear what it was, sort of 6 months later. We talked about how design needed to be responsive to COVID, because we no longer were in an era that we were before COVID. We had to recognize that things were going to change. And so you'll hear about that in a minute. We also spoke to the Historic Preservation Commission to get them to show them what was going on, as well as a notice there. And if you go to the next slide, you can see that we're not done, right? In early 2021, we did a DRC, Design Review Commission preview twice to give them an update on the design elements. And even last month, when things finally were able to, we actually hosted an in-person community event for the neighbors on the site to allow them to experience what has been behind fences for a while. And as we all, a first opportunity to reconnect with their neighbors, with us, as we talked about the project and showed updated renderings that are in your packet now. That was just last week. But with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ken to walk you through the remainder of the presentation.
Thanks, Sean. Next slide, please. So I'm going to spend a few minutes, commissioners, talking a little bit more about the plans that are in front of you, but really emphasize some key points as we really look toward how this has been truly an iterative process. As Commissioner Juarez was asking, was this the first iteration? No, it absolutely was not, if you could just see how many iterations are actually saved on my hard drive, I lost track because there were probably more than 12 or 15. But this was really our fifth submittal, formal submittal to the city as the project really evolved. Some of the questions that may come up are, as far as the reduction of the commercial, some of that was actually also in response to comments we heard during the preview with the Planning Commission. Commissioner Schwartz had asked about the viability of retail that's closer to Gladys and away from the main drag, which is why we moved toward a live-work concept where there's less visibility for the retail. But really through this process, we've really refined the project and this plan. We spent time with both staff and with the city architect at the time. We went from 10 driveways actually down to 6, which we thought was more than appropriate to address potential conflicts in terms of circulation and access. But this iterative process also gave us time to respond to the challenges of the COVID pandemic and engage in really important dialogue with community thought leaders and economic thought leaders about how retail needs to adjust and adapt to the pandemic, and likely future ones as well. And we use that time to re-examine our retail space facing the Central Park, but more importantly, facing San Gabriel Boulevard. Next slide, please. And we all saw the challenges, obviously, of COVID as it's affected retail. As John was talking about some of the sessions that we had in terms of dialogue around how retail needs to pivot to be able to address these issues that have come before us, we looked at examples of restaurants that have not only looked at ways of maximizing indoor-outdoor airflow, but have also used outdoor patio seating to create a greater level of engagement of the retail space with the pedestrian realm and the street. And we believe this is extremely important along San Gabriel Boulevard, where there really is very little engagement of any of the existing uses along the boulevard to the pedestrian realm. Next slide, please. And so as we've looked at our original targeted tenant mix for this project, many of these tenants that you see here have pivoted in response to COVID. And we want to move out of this pandemic with an eye toward really understanding, but also flowing with emerging retail trends so that we have a project that's relevant not only today, but for years to come. I'm sure you're wondering what our plans are for the fitness center space on the northwest corner of the project. And yes, there have been questions raised about the viability of a gym use. So we're actively working with our retail brokers to track and monitor how gyms are rebounding from the pandemic, but also understanding what may be some viable alternatives as well. Next slide, please. And what you also notice, let me just also comment, is that the retail strategy here is really being driven by those anchor tenants. And so when we talk about the gym originally, and also the market, when we secure those tenants, the rest of the tenants will flow. And so we're looking at probably a heavier food use, which is why it's important that we're looking at this conceptual rendering of what it looks like as we're trying to make lemonade out of lemons from the pandemic. Next slide, please. And more importantly, these renderings show how we really want to use the outdoor patios to both engage and activate the boulevard again. And we can take advantage of the 22-foot high ground floor space that we have for the retail by pushing back the front fenestration or facade wall of the retail spaces to create a balance of more indoor and outdoor seating with pronounced patio seating as well. Next slide, please. Another focal point of our design evolution, which was raised by and discussed also with the Design Review Commission during our 2 previews, is how we can engage the pedestrian environment along Gladys Avenue and create points of interest that lead into the Central Park and our retail offerings, rather than having the project turn its back on Gladys. So it was a really important point that came up with the DRC. This image shows the use of art panels that can be an homage to the nursery as well. That's subtle, but creates points of interest for pedestrians that lead them into the Central Park. Next slide, please. And along those lines, the next 2 slides will show how the Central Park space has evolved to be responsive to the community dialogue, including how park space can be programmed. And we heard a lot of wants from the community in terms of also creating event space. We've talked about night markets, but also the use of passive space as well. Next slide. And you can see here that that Gladys Avenue art treatment I mentioned earlier, as an homage to the nursery, can continue into the Central Park as it leads to this tribute grove that connects from Gladys Avenue. And it's a grove of juniper trees that we hope to relocate from San Gabriel Boulevard, which has a story of their own with the nursery, as we talked with the Yoshimura family. We're planning to install engraved pavers also along that tribute grove that also pay tribute to the legacy of the nursery. But that leads to a water feature where we're planning on additional interpretive elements that share the story of the nursery and the family's legacy. And you can also see a mixture of outdoor dining, live work units that engage and activate the park space, and also a step lawn and pavilion area that provides both special event space, but also a passive area for congregating and picnicking. Next slide, please. Near the area where this park would be located, John mentioned that we had this project preview pop up, and I just kind of wanted to end my piece on this before I hand it over to Rick, because this was honestly just a really fun and engaging community event for both the project and the neighbors. You know, we brought in local San Gabriel businesses, and we provided actually free beer and wine from Cheers. We brought in Tia Gladys and Puciano's. We also picked up egg rolls from Golden Deli. You know, to provide just a time for the community to get together. But it was pretty warm, so Nomad Ice Pops came out, and I think they gave out more than 100 ice pops. So our count of estimated attendees was about 100 based on the number of ice pops that were given out. But we really spent that time explaining the project to small groups in front of project plan and rendering boards. But overall, the attendees really just had fun getting outdoors, coming out of the pandemic, spending time with their neighbors, but also learning about the project. It was really just a really good event and a fun event as well. Next slide, please. So I'd like to hand the presentation over to Rick Abe, who's our lead design architect from Media Portfolio. He's going to give you a quick review of the final project design, including a video walkthrough of our Central Park and Plaza space. Rick?
Thanks, Ken. Good evening, everyone, and thank you. I join with Ken and John in my appreciation for your time and your consideration. I'm also grateful for the expertise extended to us by the staff here in San Gabriel. This slide, number 31, is an appropriate place for me to start. Here we have 4 images that accurately illustrate the project in context. This was a study that we did for the EIR, for the impact report. The idea here is to give an accurate sense of how the project would feel, especially as it relates to its surroundings. And certainly we were sensitive to the issues that John had mentioned earlier, both in terms of activating San Gabriel Boulevard, providing a distinct identity for the ground floor retail, as well as stepping back and giving identity to the residential units on the upper floors. We also took a real careful study in the materials, the colors, and the articulation of each piece within the development, because that's really how you make architecture successful, is by the balance between all of those different things. You know, if you look at the upper left image, it illustrates the entry view to the Central Park. Providing a publicly accessible open space for the community was at the very heart of our design from very early in our dialogue during the community workshops. The next slide will help communicate the design intent of the Central Park, but it'll also give you a sense of scale and pedestrian viability. Next slide, please. And if you click to play the animation, then that'll start. The animation starts with the entry to the development on axis with Pearl Street. And as we move from west to east into the park, we carefully design the materials and the paving patterns on the ground to help guide and define circulation for vehicles and pedestrians. It's really part of the integration of the landscape as well as the architecture. Those things really work hand in hand to help people understand where they are in the project and where they can go. And as we turn around and we move up the Juniper Grove, as Ken had mentioned, we call this a tribute grove because of the storytelling that we plan to imbue into this area. And then as we look around the center of the park, we'll see a pavilion that we have for shade and the stepped lawn that Ken was mentioning for seating and informal gatherings, outdoor lunches, that kind of thing. We create animations like this to help everyone understand how the space will feel. And we know that a meaningful open space will be well used by the city of San Gabriel and will activate a successful blend of retail and community activity. That's really has been the goal of our design from the very beginning, is to find that balance, something that works for the community, something that works for the retail and the success of the commercial, but also the residents as well. Next slide, please. So I thank you again, and I'll pass it back to Ken for some final comments.
Thank you, Rick. First of all, thank you for allowing us the time to give this presentation. When I talked to Samantha, she said, you have 15 minutes, and we went way over. So we do apologize for the additional time that we took, but we do think it was important to really tell the story of the project from a community engagement standpoint, rather than just the project and the site plan itself. I just want to end by saying that, this process has been one that's been important for us. But as we close it out and really talk about the heart of the project, it really rests on the vibrancy and the dynamics of the project's uses and amenities, including the mainstream retail that we're proposing, needed housing, the community space, including the park, and the tribute to the nursery's legacy, along with the activation of San Gabriel Boulevard. That's also responding appropriately to lessons learned from the pandemic. Next slide. And with that, our team is happy to answer any questions that you have about what's been presented tonight and in your packet as well. So thank you very much, Chair and members of the commission.
Okay, thank you very much. Commissioners, any comments, questions of the applicant?
I do.
Okay, go ahead.
First, I want to compliment you because I was the one who said you need to do more public presentations, that doing 2017 was not enough. And you guys took that to heart and did a lot of public outreach. And I really think that benefits you all and the community. My question is, you didn't talk about the residential, I believe, are townhomes. Are they all market rate townhomes? Are any of them affordable for moderate income? How's that going to work?
Commissioner Schwartz, this is Ken Lee. So I will be fielding the questions and deferring to appropriate team members if I need to. This particular one I can address. It's 243 multifamily units, and it's split between the two buildings. So we have 102 units. This is not including the live work, by the way. So we have 102 units on the North 700 Plaza, and then another 141 units on the South 800 Plaza, as well as 4 live work on the North, 4 live work on the South. These are proposed all as market rate units, and I understand that there's active discussions, not only because ARENA and the housing element updates about the need for additional affordable housing. The economics of this project really has dictated for us that we are looking at market rate units, but the development agreement does also include a contribution to, I believe it hasn't been created just yet, but with the first payment of deposit for an affordable housing contribution, that the city would be creating a housing trust fund. And so that is in the development agreement, and it's for an amount of $800,000.
Thank you. That was my main question for the moment. Thank you.
you.
Okay, anybody else? If-
I'll make some comments.
Okay,
Yeah, thank you for your presentations. And yeah, I think the presentation did really well, and I do appreciate the information of the designs, and also I see that the massing's been spread out, allocated to purposely to create those open courtyard space, and also in respect to the pedestrian street and street facing facade. Yeah, I saw the walkthrough videos, and I was just wondering, is there any consideration of integral vertically on the landscape? I do remember these are it used to be a nurseries. I felt there's a golden opportunity for the developers to really address the landscape, even not only on the ground floor, maybe on the second or third, so even on the roof. So it's just my see it. I saw that was the overall the site plans and the massing displayed well, and I just thinking there's probably a chance to even make it better for the open space, not only on the ground floor, also on the second floor, third floor, maybe above. That's my question.
Thank you, Commissioner Liu. If I may, Chairman. Yes, no, absolutely. This has been an ongoing conversation we've been having, even from a landscape planning standpoint as well, in terms of plant selection. That's why the Juniper Grove was an important aspect, because as we were meeting with the nursery family, there was a story behind the junipers that are along San Gabriel Boulevard. And if we can hopefully keep them alive, the idea is to transplant them over into this grove. I would like to also ask Rick Abe to address the question around the landscaping piece, because we have talked about being open and flexible toward additional landscaping, plant selections in terms of any additional, appropriate homage to the nursery as well. Rick?
Yes, let me add something to it before the next answer. Yeah, I think overall, there are still the massing is pretty tall. I see that purpose of setbacks and respect to the street, and have the retail patio open to the street. That's all really, really nice gestures. But it doesn't change the fact that's it's a tall building. The massing is pretty sized. So I understand that's the development, economic side of the development. You got to achieve your numbers, but also architecturally, there is a way of to soft the massing, to soft it up. I thought there's maybe a chance to use it landscape as part of the tool to make that effort. Thank you.
Thank you for that additional comment. Rick?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, this is Rick Abe, the lead design architect. Your point is very well taken, and that has been considered throughout the design process. Let me explain that in two ways. You accurately indicated that landscape on the ground floor is not where the project should end, right? That there's activity on the upper floors, especially as you look at within your packets, there are the different buildings that house the residential units. And then in the center of those units, in the courtyard that the enclosing units create, we have a well-designed garden space on each of the sides, the north and the south side. And those are designed for the private use of the residents, because it would give them a kind of an oasis for them to go, where they could experience, you know, a sense of garden and a sense of green, and that, you know, by itself is valuable. The second point that I wanted to make is, and if you go to slide 27, the other point I wanted to make is that there are opportunities to have landscape visible from the ground level, even though it's on the second floor. So as we were looking at how we would allow the elevation along Gladys, we were looking at the ability to put planting along the edge of the parapet. So we have several ideas that we plan to develop that relates to how greenscaping basically is incorporated into the visible areas of the project, whether that's you know, green walls that are applied to the structure, or planters, or visible landscaping from the courtyards. So thank you for that. And yes, we definitely want to encourage that thematic element throughout the project.
Thank you. My memory of that nursery is green. It's a lot of lush greens. That was history of that site. So I that's my feelings. I want to see some representation of that, not only on the ground floor, also maybe on the up above. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Jingbo. Jackie, do we have any public comment?
Yes, we received 6 public comments.
Okay, you want to go ahead with that?
Yes. The first one is from David Ko Lee, and he writes, as a neighbor and San Gabriel stakeholder, I request that you approve the proposed project at 700 to 800 South San Gabriel Boulevard. I love the idea of open, organized green spacing, local new coffee shops and restaurants, and just more energy and SGV. The second one is from the law office of Lazo Drury, from Rebecca Davis. They're located at 1939 Harrison Street, Suite 150, Oakland, California. She had attached a 50+ page attachment. So I'm just going to read the first 3 minutes of the attachment. And I believe this was already forwarded to all commissioners for review. So it says here, I'm writing on behalf of Supporters Alliance for Environmental Responsibility, including its members living and working in and around the city of San Gabriel, collectively SAFER, or commenters, regarding the final environmental impact report prepared for the Pacific Square San Gabriel mixed-use project, State Clearinghouse number 20180811085. After reviewing the FEIR together with our consultant, it is clear that the document fails to comply with CEQA and fails to adequately analyze and mitigate the project's impacts. Certified industrial hygienist Francis Bud Offerman has conducted a review of the project, the EIR, and relevant appendices regarding the project's indoor air emissions. Mr. Offerman concludes that it is likely that the project will expose future residents of the project to significant impacts related to indoor air quality, and in particular, emissions of the cancer-causing chemical formaldehyde. Mr. Offerman is one of the world's leading experts on indoor air quality and has published extensively on the topic. Mr. Offerman's expert comments and CV are attached here too as Exhibit A. In addition, the FEIR fails to respond to public comment on the inadequacy of mitigation measure MM-NOI-1 And as a result, there is no evidence that the project's significant noise impact will be reduced to a less than significant level. A revised EIR should be prepared prior to project approval to analyze all impacts and require implementation of all feasible mitigation measures as described more fully below. Project description. The project is a 6-story, 495,544 square foot mixed-use development divided between 2 plazas that would include retail commercial uses on the ground level, 1 level of below ground parking, and residential uses above the retail use. The 700 plaza would include 102 residential units, 4 live-work units, and 36,352 square feet of ground floor commercial space, including restaurant, retail, commercial live-work space, and a fitness center. The 800 plaza would include 141 residential units, 4 live-work units, and 39,694 square feet of ground floor commercial space, including restaurant, retail, cafe, commercial live-work space, and a market. In total, there would be 243 residential units. That concludes my 3-minute mark, so I'm going to proceed to the next public comment. Okay, number 3 is from
Jackie, let me just jump in here real
Sure, sure.
quickly. Just so that the public knows, the 52 pages have been submitted to the Planning Commission, and we have had an opportunity to read these. So just, in the interest of time, we can't go through and read 52 pages. So that's where that's coming from. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chairman. Okay, the third public comment is from Mr. Andrew Cardenas, and he writes, as a neighbor and local resident in San Gabriel, I request that you approve the proposed project at 700 to 800 South San Gabriel Boulevard. This project will provide a destination for residents to shop and dine and provide an opportunity to enhance the diversity and inclusion for all residents in the community. The new open space will be an asset to the community, fostering a local space to gather. This project will benefit the community when built, and I encourage you to vote to approve the project. The fourth one is from Mr. Todd Swanton, and he writes, I'm writing to express our support for the proposed Pacific Square San Gabriel project at 700 to 800 South San Gabriel Boulevard. My family has been a part of this neighborhood for almost 100 years, and we still maintain 2 properties that are adjacent to this project, our retail store, San Gabriel Nursery and Florist at 632 South San Gabriel Boulevard, and a property on Gladys Avenue. We're also the prior owners of the proposed development site. We are greatly impressed by the outreach the developer has made to us and the surrounding community thus far, the responsiveness of the developer and their staff in mitigating issues that have developed with the property being vacant, and to our concerns that we have voiced about issues that may arise from construction and occupancy of the development. The developer has also been in contact with us about a tribute to the nursery and incorporating design elements reflecting the former horticulture use of the site. We appreciate the subtle references to the prior use of the site in the proposed project, like the use of the existing mature trees and the tree forms on the parking lot screening. We are excited at the prospect of bringing in both new businesses and new residents to our neighborhood in an inviting and open format. We look forward to walking access to the shopping, dining, and recreation proposed in the development. We would also like to mention that while any proposed use for the property will have some aspects that may be viewed negatively, leaving the property vacant is a huge loss for everyone in the community. Not only does the city lose potential tax revenue, the community loses out on access to services and housing, and the unused site attracts squatting, vandalism, and dumping of trash, diminishing the quality of life for everyone around them. Thank you for your attention and consideration. The fifth one is from, let's see. is from the law office of Mitchell M. Tsai, located at 155 South El Molino Avenue, Suite 104 in Pasadena. And he submitted an 80-page long or 85-page long attachment. And so I'm going to read the first 3 minutes of this attachment. On behalf of the Southwestern Regional Council of Carpenters, my office is submitting these comments on the City of San Gabriel's final environmental impact report for the Pacific Square San Gabriel mixed-use project. These comments reiterate and supplement comments submitted by commenter on January 21st and February 28, 2021 concerning the draft environmental impact report. The Southwest Carpenters is a labor union representing more than 50,000 union carpenters in 6 states and has a strong interest in well-ordered land use planning and addressing the environmental impacts of development projects. Individual members of the Southwest Carpenters live, work, and recreate in the city and surrounding communities and would be directly affected by the project's environmental impacts. Commenters expressly reserves the right to supplement these comments at or prior to hearings on the project and at any later hearings and proceedings related to this project. Commenters incorporates by reference all comments raising issues regarding the EIR submitted prior to certification of the EIR for the project. Moreover, commenter requests that the city provide notice for any and all notices referring to related to the project issued under the California Environmental Quality Act, Cal Public Resources Code, and the California Planning and Zoning Law. California Public Resources Code sections 21019.2 and 21167 and Government Code section 65092 require agencies to mail such notices to any person who has filed a written request for them with the clerk of the agency's governing body. The city should require the applicant provide additional community benefits, such as requiring local hire and use of a skilled and trained workforce to build the project. The city should require the use of workers who have graduated from a joint labor management apprenticeship training program approved by the state of California, or have at least as many hours of on-the-job experience in the applicable craft, which would be required to graduate from such a state-approved apprenticeship training program, or who is registered apprentices in an apprenticeship training program approved by the state of California. Community benefits, such as local hire and skilled and trained workforce requirements, can also be helpful to reduce environmental impacts. That's my 3-minute mark. So I will stop right here. And then the last comment is from Mr. Alexis Salamanca. And he writes, as the president of the San Gabriel Chamber of Commerce, business owner and resident in the city of San Gabriel, I am advocating strongly in favor to approve the proposed project at 700 to 800 South San Gabriel Boulevard. Along with the members of the Chamber Board of Directors, Chamber ambassadors, Chamber members, and local residents, I attended the recent project preview pop-up held at the site. I firmly believe this project will enhance and empower our business community by providing a great opportunity for jobs and shopping. I have had the privilege of personally meeting Mr. Ken Lee, Mr. John Brary, and the entire development team, and it was a great opportunity to do so. Their sincere commitment to our community is commendable. Their dedication to personally connect with residents and stakeholders is genuine. At the core of the experience lies the destination, and the core of our roots, our heritage. This project breathes life to our community. I strongly encourage you to vote to approve this project. And that concludes our public comment for this item.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Jackie. Does the applicant, would you like to take the opportunity to respond to any of the comments that were read?
Mr. Chairman, I believe that staff may be responding, as well as the environmental consultant, to the two CEQA comment letters that were received. I do want to say thank you to all those that are listening that did submit support letters, how much we appreciate the support as well. But again, we also have Amy Hoyt and Ali Tarani from BB&K if they also need to address any CEQA points as well. But I would defer first to Samantha.
Okay.
Yes, as mentioned by Senior Planner Matt Chang, on the call this evening, we do have the city's environmental consultant, ESA. And since they are the expert that conducted the analysis within the draft EIR as well as the final EIR, we will have ESA just provide a few comments on those comment letters.
That would be helpful. Thank you.
Lucy or Heather?
Okay, thank you. Chair and members of the commission. I'm Lucy Heiss-Fisher. I'm with Environmental Science Associates and the project manager for the EIR. We did have an opportunity to review letter that was public comment 2 from the Law Office of Lozer Dury, since that was received in the morning, and we can provide verbal responses to that this evening. And the second letter was received late in the afternoon. While we've had a chance to glance through it, we haven't been able to review it, in high level of detail in its entirety. There are certainly, some comments in doing a quick review that are repeats from what are responded to in the final EIR. Both of these firms did provide comment letters, and there are responses to those letters in the final EIR. Heather, would you please respond to the air quality piece? So that, if I can also just say, the one that we can respond to a higher level of detail really raised two issues. One is the indoor air quality, and the second is with regard to the noise and construction noise, and particularly the mitigation measure. Heather?
Yes, hi, I'm Heather Dubois. I am with ESA. And with respect to the indoor air quality, the building conditions in the research papers that were presented in the comment are dissimilar to the project, as the project does not propose single-family detached structures. Furthermore, the research paper was seeking to study homes built to comply with the 2008 version of the California Title 24 standards, whereas the project would be built to the most current 2019 California Title 24 standards. The 2019 version of the Title 24 standards include new ventilation requirements that improve indoor air quality, protecting residents from air pollution originating from outdoor and indoor sources. The study the cited study also acknowledges that California regulations have been effective in reducing formaldehyde concentrations in homes. The manufacture of composite wood products is regulated by the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, as well as the California Air Resources Board. The California Air Resources Board has stated that the control measures approved for reducing emissions, including formaldehyde from composite wood products, provide a level of control that protects health and safety. And therefore, the project would not expose future residents of the project to significant impacts related to indoor air quality. And I will pass it back to you, Lucy.
Thank you. And I was going to ask Tony if you could address the noise comment in that letter, please.
Yes, this is Tony Chong with ESA, Principal Acoustical Engineer. First, I want to point out that the city's municipal code has listed the hours of permitted for construction activities. However, the municipal code does not identify any numerical threshold for construction activity occurring during the permitted daytime hours. So in the sense that, as long as the construction stay within the permitted hours, it would not violate the general plan noise element and municipal code standards for that matter. The noise level or noise standard cited in the comments, those are in the noise element, but those are designed for regulating long-term stationary sources such as noisy party at a private residence or loud pumps noise from your neighbor's swimming pool. And so it's not for construction activity. So in a way, there's no numerical threshold to regulate construction activities occurring during the permitted daytime hours. And in the EIR, we identify a few noise reduction measures. Those are designed for reducing the project-related construction noise so that the noise would not exceed the ambient noise or the prevailing ambient noise at sensitive receptors in the project vicinity by more than 5 decibel. We should know that any noise increased by 10 decibel is doubling of the sound as perceived by human ear, and then anything increased by less than 3 decibel is hardly perceivable. But between 3 and 5 is readily perceivable. So we try to reduce the construction noise to a level that is, even though it's perceivable, but it will not go up to the level of being annoying to the residents. So to conclude my statement, it is within the permitted daytime hours. There's no construction noise standards. We provide the measure to reduce it so that it would be more compatible to the prevailing ambient noise. Back to Lucy.
Thank you. And I just want to also point out that the noise mitigation measure in the final EIR was revised to include some specificity that was brought up in one of the letters.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Okay, if we don't have any more public comment, I'm going to close that portion of the hearing. And let's open this up for commissioner discussion. Let me go ahead and jump in here. I think it was mentioned earlier that somebody had mentioned that this has been going on for 5 years, and I've been on the commission a lot longer than that. And this property has been in play, out of play, all kinds of different iterations of what's it going to be? Big box retail, residential. This has been going on for literally decades. And what I'm really impressed with here is the community outreach, and it works. When you try to bring in a development like this and kind of in the dark of night, and you don't really have any community input into it, then you have a lot of pushback from the community. But when you open your arms and open your eyes and ears and listen to people, and you can come up with something that's really valuable for the community. And I want to commend both the city staff and also the the developer and the whole team. You guys have done a terrific job as far as community outreach, really going above and beyond what we've even asked you to do. But what happens is you've come up with a development that is, to my eyes, very sensitive to the community. You know, you're not ignoring the past use of the site. You know, and that the nursery has always been a very important part of our community. And I think a lot of people over the years have been, you know, kind of apprehensive about, you know, what is going to go there. And, you know, I think this is just terrific. It's big. It's very big. But I think really the setbacks, the fact that it's not surrounded by R1 properties, everything is buffered between major roads and other developments and other commercial areas. So I think it creates a suitable site to go big. And, you know, I mean, that's one of the things we need to look at here in San Gabriel is, you know, if we're going to increase density, where is that going to be? And it needs to be on the major thoroughfares and the corridors that supply the city with traffic and moving people to and from. So, you know, this is a large piece of land. It's a large development. But there's some open spaces. I think there's a real sensitivity to bringing people in, and you know, without being too much of a salesman here, I'm just really impressed with your presentation, and I appreciate that. So, anybody else? Jingbo?
Hear me now? Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yes, I do agree with the chairman's comments. It is a very large site, and I do appreciate the developer, the development team, their effort to reach out to the communities and to really, you know, digging deep to come up this large size development, but also sensitive to the community's question and their feelings. And I think this is one of the a better work I've seen in the size of design development. And I understand that the scales, the size is dictated by the land price, and there is I'm surprised it's not looks too big to me. It's 6 stories, but it's been divided into groups and surrounded by open spaces. I made my comments on that is, you know, with the setbacks and also with the landscape, that some additional work can be done to make it even more a comfortable or for respect to what it was before, and make it a more accessible and visually more pleasant. I'm not taking me wrong. The design it's good designs, but also I see there is a opportunity to make it a even better. So in general, I'm very impressed by the work presented to me.
Thanks, Jingbo. Jerry?
I think it's a vast improvement. I think the iterations show the amount of work you've done and the sensitivity to the site and the community. So I think it's a strong project, and I think it's a project the community needs. I am specifically interested in the tenant mix. Kevin Engstrom of Kaiser Marston did a market study in which he made some assumptions from a revenue standpoint for the community, for the city of San Gabriel. And I assume he made some assumptions on the retail mix. And I think that's important for us, in addition to the design, the breakup of the residential, the sensitivity to Gladys, and the entry point focus and the green space that's part of that process. So I'm concerned about tenant mix. I think that's an important consideration when you have 76,000 square feet of retail. That's a lot of retail for this community. And I think it's an important aspect of this project that maybe doesn't get discussed as much as it should. Overall, I'm supportive of the project. I think it's well done. I think it's good for the community. I think the fact that you're providing a contribution to affordable housing in the community is good. And I think this will be a welcome project for San Gabriel.
Thanks, Jerry. Mark?
I'd like to concur with the comments made with previously, previous commissioners' statements. And I share some of those concerns, as in size. 65 feet is huge. I'm concerned about the retail mix. I'm wondering, and we don't have to answer it now unless there's some urgency to do so, but how many of those potential retailers are locked? Or is it simply an expression of interest? Or, you know, what is the likelihood we would wind up with those retailers? That is important, that's been expressed in these community meetings, apparently, before my time. So that's of concern to me, that we do get some of those retailers that were on that slide. They all look good, and I'm hoping that we wind up with those. You know, not all, we can't have all of them, but I mean from that list. And I also agree with the sentiment that this project needs to be done. I mean, it's a piece of dirt right now. It's not doing anybody any good. The only question in my mind is, how is this going to be done? Under what design and what scale, with what tenants, and so forth. And to that end, I do have some questions. Again, we don't, maybe we do have to do it now. On page 4-13 of the EIR, it's way in the back. It shows, it's part of the section on alternative projects that apparently are required, which somebody in the legislature was thinking when they added that requirement. I was shocked. And one of the requirements is a code, one of the alternatives is a code compliant project. And on page 4-13, and this was kind of dismaying because up to this point, I'm going through all these pages and I'm like, okay, looks like it'll be okay, looks like it'll be okay. And then I see the project's comparison to existing code. Okay, almost every measure exceeds code by double or more. And I'm saying, oh man, you know, I mean, because we obviously do need this project. And so how do we resolve that? Okay, that's one question I have. The other question is that are more easily mitigated, more easily addressed. Traffic. I know it's no longer allowed to be part of the EIR, and that the legislature went to sleep or had a 3-martini lunch on that one. But still, just because it's not part of the EIR doesn't mean the citizens of San Gabriel aren't going to have to deal with increased traffic on San Gabriel Boulevard. And I drive that regularly. And there are 3 entrances to this site if you're traveling northbound on San Gabriel Boulevard. There's really only one viable one if you're traveling southbound. And that concerns me because that means those left turns are going to stack up into the southbound lanes. And Mission at San Gabriel Boulevard is one of the most, I don't know that we have LOS measures around anymore, but my guess would be F, level of service at Mission at San Gabriel Boulevard. So I think that could be addressed with some signaling. Okay, that's all I'm talking about there. I'm not talking about the project can't work, but we need to get some advanced signaling maybe. And then the other thing that was mentioned is, and I think if I understood correctly, staff, that the final design of this project is pending other approvals. So what we see in these pictures isn't the final design and materials and so forth. Is that correct? Anybody?
Yes.
Okay.
Actually, Matt, if I can start, and Chairman and members of the Commission, this will be a shared response between planning staff as well as the city's environmental consultant, ESA. So planning staff will begin from a planning perspective, and then ESA can follow up with the more technical responses to the questions regarding the draft EIR. Generally speaking, the CEQA regulations require that the alternative development to the site be analyzed. And some things to consider is in the code compliant alternative. A code compliant project would mean that there would be no residential component to this project, although it would be constructed per zoning code. And the existing zoning on this property without the overlay is a C1 zone. And the height that's actually allowed in the C1. Oh, I'm sorry.
That wasn't my question. My question was the design, the facade, the colors.
Oh, specifically in response to the design and the colors. This is the.
Before we go further on that, okay, the alternative in the book specifically calls out residential. So we can take those in whatever order you wish.
I can start on the design. So this is the design that's proposed before the Planning Commission. Is the design that went before the Design Review Commission on 2 review occasions for preview. The colors, the materials, the planting landscape plan. This is the design that was reviewed by the Design Review Commission, and it is what is presented to the Planning Commission as well as to the City Council for review and consideration. Following,
so this is the final design, colors, materials. Is that correct?
This is the proposal.
Okay.
That is.
I misunderstood.
Yes. Okay. And in regards to the residential alternative, so there were 4 alternatives.
On page 413 that I'm referring to. It's on the very back of the draft EIR binder. And they don't have regular numbering. It's the number, it's table 4-1. And it shows proposed project, 1 bedrooms, 40 dwelling units, code compliant alternative, 22 dwelling units, 2 bedrooms proposed, 151 dwelling units, code compliant, 70 dwelling units, and so on. At every measure, the code compliant alternative is about half of what's being proposed. So I would just simply I'm struggling with this. And how we justify this.
Yes, Commissioner Juarez. the code compliant alternatives, there are a few alternatives that are identified and analyzed within the draft EIR. The first alternative is the no project alternative.
Yes.
The second alternative is a code compliant alternative. And sorry, I am going through chapter 4 that discusses the different alternatives. And then alternative 3 is reduced density alternative. And then the final alternative 4, is reduced commercial alternative. So as staff had mentioned, the underlining zone is C1, which allows for commercial development. The code compliant analysis, the C1 zone also allows for mixed use development. So the breakdown of the bedroom and live work and commercial that you see in that table is code compliant per a mixed use development within the C1 zone.
As it exists today, is that what you're saying?
That is correct, yes.
All right, yeah, okay. All I'm saying is I'm struggling with this. As I go down the list now, commercial 69,000 square feet proposed, 130,000 square feet permitted. It's underparked by 300 spaces. Required 1262, provided 918. I mean, again, I know we need this project. I want to support it, but I think it needs some tweaks, okay? At least with regard to traffic flow. And I want to go, I mean, I'm sorry, no offense to the design review board, but this is San Gabriel, the origin of the LA area, okay? With his great historical significance. This architecture looks like something that belongs in Mid-Wilshire. That's when I first saw the picture. That's what first came to mind. And so I'm disappointed. I thought I had heard that this was just kind of a tentative proposal in terms of materials and colors. So, you know, I guess I could live with that. I could live with the design as it is, but traffic, we need to address that, at least for my support. And I need some explanation so I can sleep at night as to why we would approve more than double of what the code allows. Okay, I guess the obvious one might be we need the money, but I don't know. I think we can do both. I think we can build. I'm that kind of person, you know. In the holidays, Mark, do you want pumpkin pie or apple? Yes. Okay, both. Okay, can we build this and generate tax revenue and avoid making a horrible traffic situation worse? I say yes. That's my perspective. So I'm done. Sorry, I didn't mean to take up so much time, make such a long speech, but that's what I'm struggling with.
Okay, did we want to have the consultant jump in on some of the EIR questions there?
Yes, Chairman, this is Samantha. We will pass the question on to ESA, Lucy on behalf of ESA, and we can start with responses to VMT analysis as well as additional LOS analysis.
Okay, and did you not want anything on alternatives? Because
oh no, please also address alternatives, Lucy. Thank you.
okay, and as the commissioner said, yes, alternatives are required to be evaluated in an EIR, and we need to evaluate a reasonable range of alternatives. One of the requirements for defining alternatives is if there's significant impacts, you need to pick an alternative that reduces significant impacts. And what I wanted to point out that's important here is that the project does not have any significant impacts. So what's been evaluated, the project in its entirety with the higher density and mix of uses, with that mix of uses, that the project as proposed does not result in significant impacts.
Define significant impact.
There are thresholds that are used in the CEQA analysis, And each section goes through those thresholds and discusses a project impact to evaluate whether or not the project would result in, for example, air quality that would exceed each of the thresholds relevant to air quality. And it goes through that for each of the issue areas.
But traffic was not analyzed, correct?
Yes, traffic was analyzed.
Or was analyzed.
Yes, transportation is analyzed. And I think as you referred to in your comments, the threshold, it's a vehicle miles traveled. The state switched from level of service to vehicle miles traveled. So that is the CEQA threshold that's used in the document.
Yes, I saw that. So they're measuring number of miles, not flow, not congestion or anything like that. I saw that. Okay.
Correct. Yes, that's correct.
All right. Okay.
I think I hit all the points, but if I miss something, please let me know.
Can anybody address what is the benefit to the citizens of San Gabriel to build this at twice the density that are now? I'll admit, because it seems like every large project we get comes with a zone change and a general plan amendment. So we know it was. I think Commissioner Liu brought it up. Our general plan needs updating, but as it sits now, what is the rationale for approving this at more than twice existing code? That's, I mean, and I haven't gone to water. I don't even want to go there. You know, the state's ordered us to cut back by 15%, but you know, forget that. We'll just stick to what we got in terms of density and number of dwelling units.
Yes, staff will, this is senior planner Matt Chen. I'll provide some of the responses. So staff has evaluated this project, and I believe that plan development overlay zone, which is kind of its own development standard, could be supported because this is one of the few remaining larger, like a city block site in the city. With the increase in density, you are kind of generate more housing unit for the city. Because for example, for a 3-story mixed-use project, actually you only get 2 floor of residential units. In this case, we'll get 4 floor of residential units. So that's where you get additional residential units to meet the kind of that state housing goal that's set for the city. As for the additional square footage for the commercial space, you'll generate tax revenue for the city as well. The concept of mixed use is that hopefully the resident of that project will kind of patronize their own commercial space, so reduce the traffic. That's why I think the intent of the VMT vehicle miles travel. So basically, you stay or shop at the same site. And the other thing, like staff like to point out, that this project actually provides more than enough parking spaces. So this project doesn't require any kind of parking waiver or have a separate parking standards. This project actually provide a net of 65 parking spaces. So hopefully
that's not what it says. That's not what it says in the EIR. It says it's deficient by it is 300 parking spaces short according to the EIR. So I don't know which is correct. I will say this, that on this comparison, the open space is more than open space provided is more than double required. So, I mean, I'll answer partly my own question. One thing that the citizens of San Gabriel will get is a park, essentially, an urban style park, because they're not producing $130,000 square feet of retail space. The difference is approximately the size of the park areas. So there's that. But I'm telling you that the traffic needs to be addressed. If we can address the traffic as a body, I could live with looking at the architecture, which I think is totally inappropriate for a historic city like San Gabriel. Okay. I mean, even the Sheridan, which is roughly basically a box. I mean, that thing went up so quick because it is a box, but they decorated it. They made a little Art Deco things on it, and it doesn't look like a box, and it has some character. Okay. That, to me, in my mind, that fits more than something more modern looking like this. San Gabriel's a historic city, but okay, fine. That's my opinion. But traffic is not my opinion. Drive that, try it at rush hour. And this will make a nightmare into a double nightmare, I guess. That's all I can say. Yeah. So, that's my comment, I guess. I don't know. I guess we'll have to talk about it and vote our consciences. So.
Okay, thanks, Mark.
Yeah.
Any other comments? Okay, I'm going to move to adopt a resolution of the Planning Commission for the City of San Gabriel recommending that the City Council certify the environmental impact report. State Clearinghouse number 201-808-1085. Adopt the findings of fact and mitigation monitoring and reporting program and approve planning case number ZZ 18-001 and TMAP 18-005 for a zone change, planned development overlay zone, and a tentative track map at 700 to 800 South San Gabriel Boulevard. That's the motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Jackie, a vote?
Question before we vote, please.
Go ahead.
So does that, just for clarification, so does that mean that there is no interest in mitigating, as part of this project, in mitigating traffic? I'm talking signals or turn pockets. Fellow commissioners, nobody has any interest in that. And if I will assume that that's the case. Okay. Okay. Sorry. Roll call. Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry, this is Ken Lee. Is it okay for me to point something out very quickly?
Sure. Yeah, but I try to run a loose meeting, so go ahead, Ken.
No, I appreciate that, and I do apologize because this is not customary for me to address the commission right before you vote. But Commissioner Juarez, I did want to point out that there's only one driveway entrance off of San Gabriel Boulevard. This was important because we originally had multiple driveways, and in response to multiple meetings with city architect and staff, including public works staff, we basically put in one grand entrance, which is aligned with Pearl. That intersection will be signalized. There is no signal there today, and I did want to point that out.
So then, question then. First of all, it's not on the drawings. I looked at it. So will there be a left turn pocket in the grand entrance then? Because if that's the case, then I wouldn't have had an objection. But it's not on the drawings. I double and triple checked it. Are you saying
It wouldn't be on the drawings now. There will be a street improvement plan that we're required to prepare once the project is approved. And that will be in coordination with Public Works. So my understanding is that there would be a left turn pocket traveling south.
Okay, all right. Well, then I wouldn't even have a problem with it. If it on the drawings, you'll have a left turn pocket at Pearl and a left turn pocket at El Monte to enter this property. And so that should more than do it, because Grand is not a viable left turn. When it's red at Mission, the line of cars goes past Grand, blocking any crossing there. So just so I'm clear, left turn pocket at Pearl, and there's already a left turn pocket at El Monte. Is that correct?
I believe that's correct. Matt, can you confirm?
This is Senior Planner Matt Chen speaking. Yes, there's already a signal and also left-hand signal on El Monte. that was installed as part of the Olsen project several years ago, if I remember correctly. So Commissioner Horace, you're correct. There is a traffic signal and left turn on El Monte currently. Yes.
Already, yeah. Okay, I know. I went there. I went there today. Yeah.
Matt,
But there
Matt,
will be-
that was installed with the Gladys development,
Yeah.
the residential
Mission.
development.
Oh, the Olsen project, yes.
The
Mission
Olsen-
Walk.
Yes, that's the one. Yeah.
All right. Well,
Okay,
that was
got a motion
that
out
was my biggest objection. I know we need the tax revenue. I read the city, the SCAG bulletins and so forth about municipalities and so forth. So, okay, then, you know what, if that's the case, then I don't have an issue with traffic. I'll get used to the look of the building.
All right, very good. Jackie?
Okay, vote, let's see, Commissioner Juarez,
Yes. Believe it or
Commissioner
not.
Schwartz, thank you, Commissioner Schwartz,
Yes.
Vice Chair Lu. Vice Chair Lu,
Yes.
and Chairman Plowiter.
Yes.
Okay, the vote is 4-0, motion carried. Thank you.
Okay, congratulations to the development team, and we're really looking forward to a great use of that property. And thank you for your time tonight. This went very long, and we appreciate everybody hanging in there.
Sorry.
Thank you for your patience, and we want to just thank the commission and the staff. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you. Okay, next item.
You have another item?
Well, just commissioner business
Mhm.
is, okay. Samantha, any items that we need to know about within the city?
No items in particular, just that potentially in August, planning commission meetings may begin in person, but staff will notify the planning commission beforehand before the meeting if that is the case.
Well, that's good news. Okay.
And that concludes staff's comments.
Okay. Actually, I have a question for you, Sam, and that is, I think I read somewhere, maybe it was the newsletter, that the city hall is opening up for appointments only. Is that true? And what about the counter?
Yes, that's correct. City Hall, all city facilities are open to the public, and it is walk-ins in the morning time from 8 to 11:30, and then in the afternoon times it is by appointment only.
Okay. And the planning counter, is that the walk-in for everything then?
Yes, that's correct. So it is walk-in for the planning building counter as well as for finance. Again, 8 to 12 for walk-ins, and then appointments for all the counters in the afternoon time.
Okay, that's good news. Thank you. Let's see, any commissioner comments? I don't think anybody's been to a conference lately.
Just a quick one, I promise.
Okay, Mark.
I just wanted to concur with the comment made by Commissioner Liu earlier about we do, hopefully at some point we are updating our general plan, because it seems like I said, every project we get has got a general plan amendment or a zoning change or a variance or something. And
Yeah, the thing is when you're comparing these things, you can't really compare them to the existing code. You have to, and I think they made a mention of this, you have to look at the Mission District specific plan or the Valley Boulevard specific plan for these major corridors. That's really the apple to apple comparison as opposed to existing code, because existing code is just so far out of date. We really need
exactly. And that's the thing. If our code is done well enough, the number of variances and amendments should be minimal, but it seems to be like that's the routine now. Everything.
Yeah, exactly. And that it's a Band-Aid as I see it.
All right, that's it. I said to be short.
Okay, very good. All right, I want to thank everybody for their patience tonight. This was, this is a muscle you got to work out every once in a while, and we haven't had a meeting that had this kind of meat in it for a while. So this was fun. Anyway, I'm going to adjourn the meeting, and let's see. We're looking at, boy, reading in red is really tough. Monday, August 9th, and we may or may not be in person. So we will look forward to hearing from you, Sam. And we'll see everybody next month. So meeting adjourned.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.